And we're live.
Hello, everyone. Here we are with the Leapwing Audio Talks. Today, we have the pleasure to be with our dear friend and awesome person overall, David Malshuber. I call him Dave. He calls me E. So, welcome, Dave.
You. Thank you. Awesome to be here. So we have all met. Shall we talk about how we met?
Let's start first. I want to just briefly tell the audience who you are
Yes.
and just kind of, you know, go from that to how do you started in the business in music, how you ended up being the modern recording techniques author, and from now the how we met and so on, if
All
that's
right. All right.
that.
You drive, dude.
All right, so Dave, or DMH, is a four-time Grammy nominated musician and producer, as well as the author of the book called Modern Recording Techniques, which now I believe it's the 9th or 10th edition already,
Ninth edition.
going to 10. And he is an electronic music composer, producer, artist, and based in Seattle and Berlin.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that's a summary of who you are. I would say so.
Great.
What about tell us, Dave, how do you started in music? Where do you when did you know that your passion lied on recording and music, and
This.
how did the whole thing?
Yeah. How did all this start? This may be something that some of you, that a very few of you are familiar with. Um, it chose me. I didn't choose it. I according to family lore, third word I ever said was record. And I've always at 5, I saw my brother bought a tape recorder, and I like bam tape recorder, and off you go. And um and uh so and I started. I'm going to summarize this. I can make this the whole talk, and I'm not going to do that. um is At 11 I knew. At 11 I knew. And at 14, I went off from Indiana to New York to study recording with Don Palouse and a whole bunch of people who are amazing people, and study recording at 14, with studying with people 3-4 times my age
In New York.
in New York. It was actually upstate New York. It was Eastman School of Music, which is a big deal.
Wow.
And this was in ancient times. They and and then wow. Okay, here we go. Got into okay. I wanted to become a recording engineer, like in the worst possible way. Wanted to become a recording engineer. I went to the University of Surrey in England, which at the time was the best school in the world. And
How
they
old
chose
were you when from New York to England? Because I
England.
remember you told me that it took like a while to get accepted, that you had to go back to
Took 2 years
Indiana.
to get accepted. Took 2 years. I was about 19 when I was in England, and almost 2 years in England.
So from 14 to 19, you were as well doing some studio work
Oh,
in Indiana, right?
I was. Jack Guilfoy, a dear friend of mine. Jack died a while back. A drummer for Henry Mancini, drummer for Johnny Mathis, drummer for on and on and on. Had a recording studio in Indiana. Now you would say, a recording studio in Indiana. Jack was not your normal guy. Um, he had the first one of the first studios in the United States. He had it was a 16 track recorder back in
Hmm.
time when there were very few 16 track recorders. There was a Spectrasonics console. You would have to be an old person to know Spectrasonics console. And they were basically, there were wires. They were, is there the whole thing was like, there was no sound to it. It was completely transparent. And so I worked with Jack while being at Indiana University, and so that was quite the thing. That was pretty amazing.
was that your training before going to England? Like that was
Part of it was. Part
your
of it was.
first mentor, basically.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say that. I would say that Jack was my first mentor. That's probably true, and quite the guy to have as a mentor. Because Jack was all about quality in every single way. Indiana University, the IU School of Music, is again, it's one of the better schools of music in the world. So it's middle of nowhere, but the music, you go into the music school and you might as well be in New York. So that was pretty amazing. And I designed my own degree um, at a
How
time
was
when
how Sorry to interrupt, but how was that? Because back when you were a student, I remember you told me that there were no, you know, audio programs, and what did it take?
there were
Or
no
I think I'm going back to what we want to talk about, which is mindset, and always, it's everything starts from within. Which a guy from Indiana saying, "I'm gonna be a recording engineer and I'm gonna do my own thing."
a
How did that
piano
happen?
with no family, new recording, nothing. It came out of nowhere. It came out of seeing 45 records and just like, and you're right. Just it's like this is what I call it laser braining. And I happen to be with two other laser brains on the screen pretty much. Um, but whenever not doing a comparison at all. But whenever one says Mozart, genius, genius child doing all that stuff, everybody goes, "Oh wow!" To me, I sort of go, "That poor guy,"
Mm.
because I understand laser braining, and what laser braining means is that nothing in your life works. Absolutely, for me, when I was a kid, nothing in my life worked. Nothing worked except recording, and as a result, I just focused in on that. I lasered on that one thing, and that I again, there was no internet, there was no nothing, so I had to write off to Neumann. It's like, send me your catalogs. So I at 14, I was collecting all these catalogs and learning all this crap on my own in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, what the hell are you doing? And so it was rather interesting. So I focused almost to the it was not healthy, but because I focused so early, that later I became myself and became sort of a normal person-ish, as normal as I can be. But then I had the foundation of that laser braining to add on to that, to bring into my normal life. So it was sort of a really abnormal childhood, but I was able to bring that abnormalcy as a basis in the normalcy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It sort of worked for me.
So after you did your design your own program at the University of
I
Indiana,
did.
how do you end up in England actually?
Well, again, University of Surrey, it was the best program in the world. And it's like, I wanted to do the best program. I wanted to do it. Also, I wanted to check out another culture. I wanted to learn recording from a different cultural standpoint.
Hmm.
And I wanted to learn life from a different cultural standpoint. Going to England was like, I was super young, but it made perfect sense to me. And I'm really glad I did it. It actually, interestingly enough, because it was so classically oriented, it gave me a classical foundation um, to recording techniques, which I'm proud of.
And how long did you stay in England, and what happened after that?
I wanted to get the hell out. Uh, I did. I won't go into my things about England, but it's like, I think people are meant to be certain places. I was not meant to be in England. There are a lot of cultural stuff that sort of drives me nuts. All Americans are like, "Oh, England, it's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. Their language is so." None of that gone. It just took all of it and wrenched it all out because I understand a whole bunch of things. Enough said about that. I don't want to get into trouble, but so yeah,
All right.
yeah. Thanks.
And I we always talk when you decided to basically started doing your own thing, and when
Oh, wow,
what was a step from
wow.
realizing that your entire life you wanted to do something, and then realizing like maybe
The thing is he knows me too well. So we've known each other for a very, very, very long time. So he knows all the in between lines. All right. So this is my thing for you guys and gals out there. The When I was that young laser braining person who wanted to be a recording engineer in the worst way, I wanted to be nothing else mattered. I wanted to be a recording engineer. And I went I did all this studying, did all this work, did all this stuff, became a recording engineer, was working in New York and Indiana and all of this stuff at major studios in New York and in London, working as an assistant at D. Lane Lee, which is like the second largest studio to Abbey Road. And I found out that I did not want to be a recording engineer, that it was, I hated it. And can you imagine spending your entire life focusing on attaining this one thing, and you attain it and you find out that it's not right for you? And oh boy, I was lost, but again, with back to the idea of modern recording techniques, it wasn't that long after that I just made the decision. It's like, no, and Modern Recording Techniques, the book, basically fell out of the sky into my lap. It was a complete fluke. We don't need to go into it, but accidents happen. And I happened to have been at exactly the right place at the right time on the right phone call to make and have had done the life studies. And Jack was really after me to learn how to write. He was really like, Dave, I do proposals, and he would be like, you can do better than this. And I'd have to rewrite proposals. And he basically sort of taught me that I can be a writer. And so I ended up doing the book. And so here's this person that studied recording all his life, all of a sudden being given the world standard text and recording. And that was like pretty, oh my God. It was one of those lucky things where the right person at the right time. And and in a little bit, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to get off the topic of me, unless you guys find it really interesting. I've lived with it, so right. but I think there are other interesting things. But um, uh, it allowed me to have the freedom, as an author, and it turns out that I write really well. And because the reason why I can say that is because I write the way I talk. And I think that's why I call it MRT, Modern Recording Techniques. That's why it has worked, is because I'm writing and talking to the audience. I'm not trying to impress them and talking at them saying, this is what button you push to make me look important.
Yeah.
It's more like, this is the information, let's talk, let's, and make it understandable. And I think that's really the key to all of that. And that gave me the freedom really in life. I started out, the money was crap at the beginning, but then I'm a saver. I think it's really important to be able to prepare for the future. And I was a saver, and as a result, I've been able to have basically a free life. And as a result of it turns out that I did not want to become a recording engineer, that I hated being a recording engineer. What I actually hated was sitting behind a console recording other people's music.
Yeah.
Turns out I wasn't a recording engineer. I was a producer, and even, to this day, I'm always scared of calling myself a musician. But I'm a producer, and I use that word very, very specifically. I use the word producer in the meaning of, the original meaning was, I make something.
Yeah.
It's not like I sit there with a cigar and go, you play this, and it's like I create something.
Yeah.
And that's why I can call myself a producer, because I produce books.
Yeah.
I produce albums. You say play, I'm a crap musician. You say play such and such a song. Basically, no way in hell. You say make me a song or make me an album. Boom, I'm off and going. It's really weird, but it works for me.
Nice. Well, yeah, we have some comments from a few friends here Tom
Good.
from Galaxy Days. Dave, you are music.
Hey, Tom, thanks.
Cool. I see we have a few engineers, students as well tuning in. So I wanted to steer a bit the conversation towards what would you imagine you're in front of a, well, you are in front of a classroom of,
Yeah,
up and coming students, people that are more seasoned, but how would you say that someone can start on this in this business,
yeah,
all the things we always talk about, getting started, self-motivation, networking.
all of this stuff. I actually thought about something this morning, and it's like, and it's like, especially in this time, I think it's important for us to first of all, it's important to know what gets you up in the morning, what personally for you, and for every single one of us, it's going to be something different. And what motivates you. What do you like? What are you good at? And usually you're good at something that you like to be good at. So it basically comes back to passion, or to the motivation to do what you want to do. And I think it's important to go, it's like, especially at a time like this, is like, what is the business? What is the business? And again, there are so many different businesses. And again, does it have to be a business? Does it have to be a business? Can it be purely something that you enjoy and that you want to do? I think that idea of business is also a very Anglo-American kind of thing, where it's like, you must do this. It's like, do you pick up a guitar and play or put your hands on a keyboard because you must? Sometimes you do, but is that the be all end all? So I sort of want to say that there are different, obviously in this industry, there's so many different levels to what you want to, what you can be, what you want to be, what you should be. And again, that does, I think also we're now, that's all right, is we're in a time where it's like, I think we might be passing a time, maybe not, where it's like, everybody obviously everybody wants to be a star. Can everybody be a star? No. What does it take to be a star? What does it take to, bye phone, what does it take to do all of that? And again, it takes that laser braining. It takes that, this is, and there is nothing else. Sometimes there's a price for that. And there's a price for that beforehand. And if you get stardom, there's a price for it when you get stardom. And so, and so there are all these different levels and of the industry. It's like, what is your motivation for getting into the industry? And then what part of the industry do you want to choose? Do you want to be a recording engineer? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a musician? What do you want to do? And then, how do you want to get your music out? And then how much you're, getting your music out, how much you're prepared to do all the marketing work, all of those layers of things that are going on. And it's sort of crazy in a lot of ways, the possibilities and all the different combinations. One of the things, I'm going to digress for a second because I don't want to forget this, is that I've really been focusing on lately, is the idea of well, first of all, let's go back in time, back to 1980, for example. You know, were record labels out to screw the musicians in 1980? Absolutely. Was everything stacked against the artist? Absolutely. And that continues to go through time. And then all of a sudden the MP3 comes along, and then everybody has their, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, music is devalued. And then before you know it, it costs you could buy it for a cost of a hamburger. And then all of a sudden the cost of a hamburger was too expensive for music. You wanted it for free.
Yep.
And then artists have begun to buy into that. It's like, oh, maybe it is not worth anything. Maybe it's just enough for me to give everything out for free and to let people go um, get to know me through my music. Or maybe I can become a star that's living on the streets,
Yeah.
because I can't afford my rent. And I think that, and to this, the arch enemy to that I put is Spotify. It's Pandora. There's all of them. It's like the one in Berlin. What's the one in Berlin? I forget the
No idea.
SoundCloud. To an extent, and and you got to the point where it's like you're the devaluation of music. And then I will simply say this, and then I will get off the step, or get off the crate. Is I'm a big believer in Bandcamp, because Bandcamp, the thing about Bandcamp, what differentiates it from everybody else in two respects, is one is that 85% of the proceeds when you buy something goes to the artist, unless it's merch, and then it's 90% goes to the artist.
Yeah.
And to that, and I think that musicians and artists might go, my stuff does have value, and start steering people towards a place where they can, there's the idea of Patreon and all of that. But one can buy an artist's music. There's a really short is there's I forget his name, and his music is fabulous. It's really amazing. A UK artist, and I wanted to go buy his album, and you can't. You can't. It's on Spotify. It's on all these stuff, and you can't get a high quality copy of it,
Wow.
and you can't buy it. And you go look at his stuff, and there are like millions of views, and there's no place to buy it. Can you imagine something having millions of views on Bandcamp, where people would start buying it
Yeah.
to support the artist? Can you imagine that psychology?
Yeah.
This is where I see the industry needing to go. Back to your question of getting started in the business and stuff like that. And this is, I have my notes here, and all that stuff, because I've done this talk in Amsterdam with Rob, with you guys, and all of this, this idea of self-motivation. It's like it gets back to the idea of what gets you up in the morning, and self-motivation, and why do you want to do this? And it's, that's where it all comes from. It comes from the desire, I think, to create your art. And the other thing that, is so hard in this industry, is finding people who can help you to take your art and then to be able to get it out to the people. I have such a respect, just as I have a respect for garbage collectors, as I have a respect for, for the doctors, the nurses, the garbage collectors, all the people who do all the stuff, under the hood. The people in the music industry, the unsung heroes who are so unsung that they're hard to find, are those people who can actually help your career, and help you get connected, and help you to do your things, and those services to help artists be able to move to the next step. And so I guess, I really do want to stress that I'm not just talking about how to become a recording engineer, how to become a producer, how to become a star. There are so many different things. There are lawyers. There are people to help your career, organizers, all sorts of stuff. So there's all of this. So, but still, when you get back to it, it's self-motivation, right? The next part is networking. And right now, it's like this is a great time for networking. Nobody can get together. It's really rough. So there's all this stuff happening online, which is really quite cool. I mean, this is a network between Seattle, LA, and Miami.
Yeah.
And and again, I get a chance to talk with you guys and do my thing. That's a form of networking. I just saw that the folks at Sweetwater, is June 26th and 27th, if I remember. They have their Sweetwater, their Gear Fest is online.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the Gear Fest will be online, so that that one might be able to do that. AES in Vienna, where we're going to be in Vienna, really. I'm supposed to be in Berlin right now, but there you go. So the AES is going to be online. And then, and we have an immersive thing that we're going to be doing. And so possibly instead of speaking to hundreds of people, we might be able to speak to thousands of people.
True.
So that's I think the other thing is trying to get the idea and put it into words. Who are you? What do you want to do? And I think that when you said David Miles Huber, Dave, and all that stuff is this and that and the other, it's like he is that. I am like, at this point I'm 66 and I'm still like, who in the hell am I? I am still, who in the hell am I? What the hell am I doing? What the hell do I want to do? And I was having this conversation. I had two conversations. It was the same conversation with two different people. One was George Massenburg, and the other person was Phil Ramone. And I asked them both, "Do you ever reinvent yourself?" And the answer from both of them was all the time. George's answer was like every 2 weeks, I reinvent myself. And I find that it's the same with me. It's like, it's like you're constantly like, what do I want to, I think it's good to think forward and, what do I want to do? What works for me? What's not working for me? What might be interesting and all that. And there are common threads within that, one's art, one's personal, who one is. But but I think there's always, you never, at least I never go, oh wow, I made it, I'm the, it's like boom, it doesn't happen that way. I'm just like, okay, what's the next thing, or what's interesting, or what's fun, and you start reinventing oneself. And I personally find that really interesting. One last thing just on my top notes here is, as a dear buddy of mine, as Barb used to say, showing up is huge. And again, this is a difficult time for showing up, except for we're showing up online right now. But when all of this clears, when whatever universe we have, when it clears, is being there, saying yes. Going for example, a small but large example would be, let me give you a really good example. Just this was an accidental example, but it's fun, and it involves the three of us. Really, was at AES. No, it was a NAM. It was NAM, and everybody was around the table. You guys will probably remember this. Bob Katz was at the table. There were a whole bunch of people at the table, around this table, and we needed coffee, and somebody just said, "Dave, I'll get coffee." Remember that? And I said, "I'll go get coffee." And so I went over and stood in line and coffee. And when you're standing in line, you get bored. And so and so you turn around and start and see this young guy behind me and start talking. And I was like, "Hi, who are you?" And you get talking, and Yogi, we still in contact, Yogi, and a sweet guy, and we got to talking and just this and that and the other thing. And he came from some southern, I think it was Tennessee, came from Tennessee, I think, or one of those places, and came to NAM. And he said, "I want to see what check it out and all this stuff." And I was talking. We were talking. And I said, "Why don't you come over with us? We're sitting over at a table. Why don't you come join us at the table?" And he came over to the table and sat down, and he froze. And it's like, what? I'm sitting with a lot of my heroes right now. And he basically couldn't quite, it's like it was too much for him. He was amazed. And I went, "Well, we're all just friends." And then he got to know people. And the thing is showing up when you go to these conventions in normal times. When you go to these conventions, you go to these places, you go to these things, and you meet with people. The importance of networking can never ever be stressed.
Dave, that's such um, a great topic. As well, I want to remind the audience that please feel free to ask Dave or us any questions you might have. I mean, this is a very interactive, fluid conversation, so
Yeah.
there is not that you have to wait for Q&A. So just ask,
Also, I'll
ask.
give a little bit. Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a plug here. You can go to Bandcamp and check out my music. So
There you go. The,
and also Zelmar's music as well. David Beaver's music and Zelmar's music.
rock and roll.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, I want to before I said to have a question, but I wanted to go through this expanding in your topic because it's something that really has changed my life. The fact of showing up and being there in the right time and the right. I always remember your sentence that being in the right place at the right time, meaning that you've been in the wrong place and the wrong time 1,000 times,
Or 100,000
which
times.
you have to always show up. And I just want to tell the audience how I met Robin, and how I met you, because it was a chain of events. I ended up going to an internship in Galaxy Studios, and I think Tom Van Acht, there you
He's
go,
Hey,
here. Yeah,
Tom.
he's
he's
here.
here. So Tom Van Acht, as well, from the Galaxy team. Here's a quick story on how I ended up being who am I and with the friends that I have and all this. I was in Spain more than I think 10 years ago, and I
Seems like
wanted to get out of. I think 10 years ago, yeah. I wanted to get out of Spain and learn in a studio, learn the recording, learn producing, learn mixing, learn everything I could, and in an environment that kind of put me in a challenging position because I felt that Spain was very limited, and what I wanted, I had a more global vision of things. So I started to write Galaxy Studios, which basically that email went to Tom, and I was like, "Hey Tom, can I be an intern? I'll do anything. I'll work my ass off. I don't. I just want to learn." And I think for a year and a half, for bothering Tom and think Robin for like every other month, and basically until they say yes. So when they say yes,
I remember the conversations with Tom having about you. It's like the Spanish guy. He keeps writing. It's like what's wrong with him?
yeah, your camera is frozen, Robin, but you still
Sorry.
look
Yeah.
look wonderful. But yeah, so back in Spain, I didn't know anyone. I was by myself in a small town. Like I only had this friend that had a studio, Arturo, and he was the only contact with recording. But I, in my head, same thing was with you, Dave. Had such a focus of what I wanted to do that to my parents, sometimes they would say like, "Hey, why don't you go out and do something else?" And I was like, always, especially with guitar and music. My dad the other day was telling me like, man, I remember when you were at home when you were 15. I would go to work in the morning when you didn't have class. You were playing guitar. I would come home for lunch. You were on the guitar. I will come home for dinner. You were still on the guitar. I thought you were crazy, man.
right.
So that's how I ended up. Then I ended up in Belgium as an intern, and I remember the first month of being an intern there, I was supposed to go to Antwerp for a weekend with some friends. So I had everything planned, like, oh, I'm going on Friday and coming back to the studios on Sunday, so I'm like, I don't miss anything. And I remember I think it was Tom or you just told me like, oh, but we have David Manshuber coming in and no one is at the studios. Can you stay? And I was like, because I was working in Galaxy 24/7. So I was
Right.
like, the only weekend I have in like month and a half, and I have to stay in a weekend for a guy that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'll do it. Like I was just hungry for anything. Like I don't care. And then that was when Dave came into the studio,
And we
and
were. Yeah, but go ahead.
one, like I think the first Saturday, for some reason there was a mismatch with the kitchen. We didn't have dinner,
Oh yeah.
and I remember I
Did you
cooked.
make a tortilla that night?
Yeah, exactly. I made food for Dave and everything, and Dave was like, "Wow, what like he doesn't have to do it, and then that's how we became friends. And the
Well,
reason in the US is because of you. So
yeah, and you and I were talking about this a little bit about how people click basically, and and sometimes and the three of us, you know, are we one has families in life. These three are probably the closest of my professional family, um, and and it's a wonderful thing when you meet people that you really that just it really works with, and whatever. When we're on the phone, we almost never ever talk about technology. We never talk about tools and toys. We're always talking about making pizza or doing something like who knows what,
yes.
right? And so and that it's really amazing. you know um, okay, on a different level, you never. Oh wow. Okay, I'll try to get this out. Is there was and still is, um, what I call the golden bubble, a golden bubble, I'm so I'll be more specific in a moment. There was a golden bubble of LA producers and engineers and people of, I won't name names or anything like that. It was a bubble that is, these people were so big that you could never really become friends. And I was like, I will never, ever, ever, get to know these people, because it's like, oh my God. And then I was asked on a certain committee, and lo and behold, a lot of those people were on that committee and became dear friends. And all those people who I thought were like, oh God, oh, they're just, and in a way, there is this force field where they sort of protect themselves. And all of a sudden it's like, bam, these people became good friends. You get to know the people behind it. And, and this is, and I guess, I guess getting back to that NAM thing, where you never quite know when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just really and it just clicks, and it can click on a on a friendship level, and it often does. And it really, I want to say something, but I'm not going to, because I was on I'm doing good social editing right now. I was on the phone call with a person. I won't say when, where, what, and it's obvious that this person is working in a certain field of our industry, and it's obvious that this person is an office person. And and this office person obviously has to talk with people who are passionate artists, producers, and it's sort of interesting. It's like, because we're not driven by, we meaning artists, producers, all of us are not driven always by what can I get out of it. And there are a lot of people who are driven that way. What can I get out of it? But not everybody is. And it's interesting when when it's like the motivation is the pure joy of shared experience, of clicking, of friendship and all of that. And then also there's a certain level when you work so hard and you become so good at what you do, in a certain way you can almost let go of all of that and just deal with friendships.
Yeah.
And I love that so dearly. I love that so dearly. There's another story that I do want to. There are some stories which are really good ones. This one has to do with. Wow, I'll just lay it out because this one's complicated in a really good way, I think. Um, Another NAM. Yeah, it was a NAM. This was forever ago. PMC, Maurice with the PMC booth. And I was doing a surround playback, and with a whole bunch of other people who were doing surround playbacks. And I was the only Grammy nominated artist. The rest of them were all multi winners. And so everybody was like multi Grammy winners doing playback during the day. And this room was not the best room. Maurice was like, sorry, this room is not the best room. And it was just, And anyway, so we all, we did our playback, did our presentation, did our playback, all of that stuff. And Maurice's wife, Carolyn, I was talking with Carolyn, and I was going, oh, it really sucked. I'm sorry. I just couldn't stand to listen to it. My music just really sucked. And I was just so down, just like, oh God, it just really sounded bad. It just sounded bad. And she goes, Dave, every single person that was here today that did presentation said exactly the same thing. She goes, that's why you're here. She says, because you're trying to make it better. You're trying to make your music better. You're trying to do the best that you can. She said, if you were here going, I'm the best, I friggin' rocked, I nailed it out of the park, and everybody else really, I really did, I'm the best. Remind you of somebody? You wouldn't be here. Because that striving to be better, that striving to do one's best, is what makes one progress, be better, to do one's best, to go to the next level, to make one's art or music or production or recording, whatever it is, the best that one can be. So it's rather interesting, that idea of, that boisterous, like, I friggin' rock, and then all that's like, not always.
I just wanted to add to that because I feel like that goal of wanting to make things better, that has to be a genuine thing, like you mentioned. um
Does.
I feel like I have this conversation sometimes with students who want to apply for an internship or something, and their first question is like, well, what can I learn from them, or what can I get back from them? It's like, no, you're lucky you can be there. And then if you, from a genuine point of view, really feel like you can contribute, and you do whatever you can do, pick up pieces, clean, whatever you see that needs to be done, you do it, then people will notice and things will happen. But you have to do that from a genuine point of view, not from, oh, I'm going to do this because then maybe I'll get something back. It's like, I feel that's like an important thing. This.
Absolutely, Robin. Absolutely. It's funny you reminded me. When you said that, it reminded me we all did a thing at SAE in Paris, and all the students out in front were smoking and stuff, and there were cigarette butts everywhere, and the place was just a mess. And I just like, clean this up, get to work, clean this, and they were like, "What?" I'm like, "Clean this up." It's like, it's not always just about you being a star. Yeah. And so, and it does have to, and I think when it is genuine, what you were saying, when it is genuine, people realize that and recognize that, and that's where things can jump to the next level, or that's where friendships can form.
There is a few questions. One is from Dennis. Says, Dave,
Hey,
how
Dennis.
is spirituality in your work?
My God. Thanks, Dennis, for the really complicated question, and I appreciate it a lot. Obviously, you've listened to some of my stuff. Wow. Oh God, how do I even start on this one? I live in the Northwest Seattle, which is an area which is sort of progressive, very, very, very um, um, ecologically oriented. Before before the Trump era, we had 80% recycle rate, if not higher. And this area is just so, and that has impacted me. The native aspect of the native people here have impacted me. I think I think, if I do have a spiritualism, my spiritualism would probably be native, because it's about the earth, and if we don't respect the earth, how do you respect yourself? Um, and that idea of spirituality really does come into, I think it's super important. Um, I I'm a I am a Star Trek complete crazy person, and the reason why I'm a Star Trek crazy person is not because of I science fiction and shoot 'em up. And I'm not a Star Wars person. I'm a Star Trek person, and the reason for that is the morality. Star Trek is all about morality. It's all about interpersonal, moral relationships. And if people think it's all about, they're wrong if they think it's all about shooting up and flying from star to star and star. It's not.
Yeah.
And so that spiritualism is super important to me. I can only imagine in the U.S. what life would be like if television took a moral role instead of an easy out role, which would be violence. Is the easy? It's easy production. Violence is easy production. That's what it is. It's simple. It's cheap to make. Doing it right is hard to make. And if one really strove whatever to do the right thing and to teach people and to uplift and to I can only imagine the world that we would be in. So
I have
thanks Dennis, but yeah, it's a big part.
I wanted to. We have like 15 minutes left, but I want to touch a topic that I think we did not go over with, and I think it's very important. That you call it Leidenschaft, or
Yeah, it gets back to what we're
what
talking.
that means.
Yeah. Deutsch in German auf Deutsch, Leiden means to suffer, and Kraft, Leidenschaft, Schaft basically craft, suffercraft, and and suffercraft, Leidenschaft, suffercraft is their word for passion. Why would suffer be in passion? Because it always is. It's like something that you want, to, again, back to that wanting to be always better at. What happens when you always try to be better at something? You fail, and you fail, and you fail, and you fail, and then you do it, and then it fails, and then you do it, and then it fails, and then you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that suffering, comes from making things better. That doing things, I guess, really, when you come down to it, things that are worth doing are not easy. Leiden, suffercraft, passion.
Yep. Which in the arts, it's always the balance. I love, and I think as you, I love reading biographies. And one of my favorite
Yeah.
artists, but I'm not just talking music. For me, one of my favorite artists for inspiration, sensibility, and life, let's say, goal or like life path is Picasso. Yes, I'm from Spain as well, so that might influence it. But for me, Picasso was one of the ultimate artists, always striving. I don't know if anyone knows about the life of Picasso, but he reinvented himself every other 5 years, every 3 years, always never satisfied. He was the biggest artist in the beginning of the 20th century. He always took risks. He always tried to go against the current trends. When everyone wanted to like portray real pictures, he basically went into cubism, ways to actually not represent the reality. And I think, are touching on what you say, it's not always easy, and the life of an artist is an endless quest that never stops. But I
Yeah.
think the suffering of the harsh moments sometimes is just part of the journey instead of setbacks, because I don't know of any artist that had it easy.
Right. You bring up a really good point. And trying to organize my thoughts with a complicated thought. The talk that you did recently with Rafa, that you guys did with Rafa,
Mhm.
was really excellent. That idea of my brain just like is giving out. Hold on just a second. I will get back to it. I will come back to
Do you
this.
want to do some questions? There's a few questions from the audience, Dave.
Okay.
All right. We have one from Sasha, from Ari, actually, from Amsterdam. that says,
I already answered him.
what is something that is challenging you in music? How do you approach a new challenge? Another easy question.
Yeah. God.
We can try another question if you want.
No, I have to answer the question. Um, I take my challenges one step at a time. Um, Sometimes I'm not good at challenges. For example, guitar. I realized that I had a guitar there once before, and then there's a bass guitar there, and it's like one of these days you'll learn guitar, and it's like guitars. I pick up a guitar, and it says, "No, you will not know me." No, I am something that cannot be understood, and 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 I go, okay, all right, fine, and even though I'm crap for keyboards, I don't understand it. I put my fingers down on the keyboard, and it works. I can totally do it. A keyboard part in the way that I do,
Mhm.
you know. I just it just come I don't know. I just put my fingers down and it works. I don't get it. There's no instruction, there's no nothing. It just works. How many keyboard parts have I done? Untold. Do I know how to play the keys? Absolutely not. Do I understand it? Absolutely not. Do I want to try? No. Do I want to learn? Now this is for me, not for you guys. Do I want to learn all of this stuff? I'm not sure because I'm not sure I want to screw up what I've got going.
And
Right?
and I guess that goes back to being yourself, because from what you mentioned of taking a guitar in your hands and kind of not forming that connection, for me when I was a kid was, in my experience, completely different. Like, remember, I was maybe 7 8 years old, I had a guitar, and in my brain, like, yeah, I got this, it's, but it takes one's awareness to understand, okay, you might be able to do this.
Yeah. Right. Right. On the technical side, I there's always, there, I don't know. I'm an immersive nut. I love surround music and surround production and 9.1. I put the studio into 9.1 and stuff, and and uh, and learning that is sort of a joy. I mean, there's always something to learn, and I sort of surround myself with tools that are intuitive, um, not simple but intuitive. And so for me, it's not so much a challenge; it's sort of fun in a certain way, and then you just sort of start doing it, and yeah.
We To wrap up the conversation, then we have a last question from Henny from Amsterdam, and you might remember him. That says, Dave,
Hi, Annie.
you produce in 5.1, and I know you are getting in Atmos and Auro 3D. How do you send out demos in Atmos or Auro 3D? Is there an immersive Bandcamp?
The excellent question, Henny. Excellent question. The answer is, huh, oh. Let's do the last one first. Is there an immersive Bandcamp? Bandcamp is immersive if you do it through the back door. Quite simply, I will go through my process. Yeah, okay. The first part, yes, I'm working in immersive, blah blah blah. We'll get to that in a second. Some parts, I think Tom is on. I'm not going to get into. I don't. It's like, nah, not here. But the last part is Bandcamp is immersive. That's the other thing about Bandcamp. There are two parts about Bandcamp. Is one about the complete respect of musicians and their income. The second part is the coding in Bandcamp is, oh my God. If you fix a mix and you correct a mix, and everybody else, you have to start over, take it down, start it over. Bandcamp, you simply upload, you refresh it, basically, you re-upload it. No read, their coding is impeccable. And in Bandcamp, there is what is called, how do they exactly call it? Um, um, let's just call it extra features. They there's a name that they use for it, and in that extra stuff, you can put in liner notes. Yeah, you can put in album cover, high res album cover. You can put in all sorts of things in there. In there, I put a link. So you buy the album, you're able to do the download stuff. In there, I put a link, which then goes to my whatever service. I happen to use Google Drive, and allows you to download the 5.1 files. And so when you buy my albums in FLAC, that's the other thing about Bandcamp is you can do it you can download MP3, you can download FLAC, you can do it almost whatever format you want. It's MP3 to FLAC, basically. AAC, MP3, FLAC. I'm sure there are a few others. And so I have the 5.1 FLAC file, and you download it, and then you have it. Boom. So yes, Bandcamp is. There is another one that we're working with, and who knows what's going to happen with this one? Immersive audio album. It's like, who knows? Okay. We'll see. But the Bandcamp thing, it works. And I'm not alone on this. There are a number of people who are doing immersive work on Bandcamp. There's another really cool thing, but I'm not going to tell you about it until all the T's are, everything's crossed and stuff. But yes, now getting back to the first part of your sentence is getting things out there, and Atmos, what a pain in the ass, because it has to be video. It has to be, the encoding is like, there's all this stuff. You have to stand on a pen, twirl around, and sing and dance to hopefully get something to work. And will it get better? Probably. The Oro would be great, getting people to adopt on a home level, that would be wonderful. Anyway, so yeah, it's not easy, but FLAC surround is pretty easy. Yeah. FLAC immersive gets a little bit more touchy, a little bit more complicated, but that comes with the process. And back to the last question is about learning about new technologies, learning about all the stuff. I think trying to get this crap to the end user is almost that's like the real big one. Oh, and of course, the real big one is how to get them to listen and how to get them to buy. That's way more complicated than whatever button to push. Yeah. Pushing a button is nothing. Getting people to react to your stuff, that's the hard part. But that's a whole other topic.
Well, we're going to wrap this up. We're almost in an hour. So first of all, Dave, thanks a lot, man, for your time, for your life experience, for your knowledge, for your, for your just.
Can I have 2 minutes. I have 3 minutes. Can I do something?
Go for it.
There's another part of this that I want to do. And that is okay. Let's get back to that part of me becoming a recording engineer, and then all of a sudden I became a recording engineer and I didn't like it. Hated it, actually. I want to say to you guys, to the young people who are going to be watching this, that's okay. It's okay that if something in your life doesn't work, even if it's something you've worked at forever and it doesn't work. I always say it may not be your fault. You may be working for somebody who's horrible, or it may be completely just wrong for you. And it's okay to then shift. There are so many different possibilities in this industry. This industry has a lot of different things that one can do. I just got a glimmering of that last part that I got stuck on. That you can change, and you can take on new stuff. I think getting back, I'm going to try this. Getting back to the Rafa thing is that idea of self-reinventing, diversification. Thank you, Dave. You finally got the right word. That I think reinventing oneself is important, but that idea of diversification, that you're not just this or not just that, and because I'm short on time, I really can't get into this too much, but that idea of there are so many ways to reinvent yourself. There are so many things that one can do in the industry, and there are so many ways to be able to, for example, with me being a writer, if without the writer stuff, the other stuff wouldn't be possible. Without the other stuff, the writer stuff wouldn't be possible. It all works together, but they're separate. Robin has so many balls going, and does all these different things, and it really, it's not always easy, but it makes it so that it makes life interesting for sure, and it also follows a common thread of a love of audio, of music, of production. But yet within that there are different things that one can do, and so there are a lot about there are more options than you might think, and if the world comes to an end, it often means that the old cliche, and another door can be open.
Yeah, definitely.
There, I did it.
Exactly. Mic drop. Well, again, thanks, Dave, for taking the time and sharing your life.
Big hugs to you guys. Big hugs to everybody out there.
Big hug.
And well, everyone stay safe. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And well, I see you in the next Leapwing Audio Talk very soon.
Take care.
Adios.
Yes. All right.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
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 Bye.